Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of You're the Cure. I'm Dr. Ben Edwards. Got hopefully a great show today. It's just me today. I wanted to take an episode to fly solo and just talk to you about some things that have been on my heart. We have so many new listeners. The podcast is really, really growing. So appreciate everybody sharing that with folks. I'm not trying to reach any certain, viewership or number of views or anything, but my heart is for all the people, regardless of religion, race, sex, creed, color, anything, all the people to be well. So out of compassion and love for y'all, this is why we do what we do. The reason I know we have more listeners is because my email inbox starts filling up with interview requests from random recruiters for I guess other people want to be guests on people's podcasts. So I know when we hit the next level, because I get a whole lot more requests and random publishers sending me emails to try to get their authors or their guest on. But anyways, I'm excited that more folks are listening, because that means there's more of a chance that you can learn how to get to the root cause of your disease or symptom and then not need a doctor. The name of the show, You're the Cure, is not a gimmick. You're the cure, for sure. Your doctor can't cure you, no doubt about it. Doctors, unfortunately, get trained very narrowly, and they'll tell you, if you ask them, hey, doc, did you get trained to manage asthma or reverse it? Did you get trained to manage hypertension or reverse it? Did you get trained to manage high blood sugar or reverse it? And he'll tell you, manage. Of course, he or she's thinking, if there was a way to reverse it, they would have taught me that in school. Therefore, of course, there's no way to reverse it, because the world's full of honest and good people. And so there's no way there would be some bad, evil folks out there hiding the truth. Well, unfortunately, that is the case. The root of all evil, the love of money. Follow the money. Not going to go off on that tangent today, but my point is, we have a lot of new listeners and we're excited about that, happy about that. We're trying to get upstream and be more proactive instead of reactive. At our integrative medical clinic for the past 10 years, we've been reactionary. We just sit back and wait for desperate patients who feel like they're almost dying to come into our door, and then we help them out and try to. We never had to advertise. People just found us. There are plenty of really sick people that had exhausted the conventional medical model without success. So out of desperation, they look for something alternative. So that's been 10 years of being reactionary and kind of last option. So now we're trying to get upstream, be the first option, and be proactive, not reactive. And we're doing that mostly through our corporate wellness program. So we're super excited about the new companies that have been joining us. So part of this talk is aimed at those guys and gals too. But also just new wellness members, or maybe you're not a member yet, you're just listening and you're curious as to what we believe, why we believe, what are we doing, why are we doing it that way? There's a lot of holistic nutrition practices and health coaches. There's a lot of functional integrative medicine clinics out there. So what sets us apart, or what are we doing different? One thing I think is the fact that I believe a doctor can't cure you. Even an integrative holistic alternative doctor, the best he can do is treat a symptom. And I have many, many reasons as to why I believe that. But most of it's my own experience, going to lots of conferences with lots of integrative doctors. They're all looking and hunting and searching for that missing piece of the puzzle. There's lots of cool protocols out there using ozone and ultraviolet blood irradiation and all kinds of supplements. There's cool protocols for mold and Lyme and Epstein-Barr and chronic fatigue and autoimmune and leaky gut and all this stuff. And I've seen amazing, just miraculous, even just cutting sugar for 30 days. I've seen patients reduce and eliminate acid reflux on triple therapy, 3 different pharmaceutical agents twice a day, and in about 30 days be completely acid reflux symptom-free. I've seen people drop their blood sugar in 90 days from an average of 400 down to normal 100, totally reverse diabetes. It's amazing, just dietarily doing some things. However, I've seen a lot of these same folks hit a ceiling, and 2 to 3, 4 years down the road, their blood sugar is back up, their acid reflux is back, their hypertension's back, even though they did reverse it and get sort of to the root, or we thought they got to the root. So I think what sets us apart is this understanding that we're not just a physical being. We're not just made of physical molecules. So, as people that have been listening for a long time, or I had a patient this last week. She's been our patient for 8 years now, and she said, "Dr. Ben, I've noticed you're serious about flipping this thing and talking more peace pillar and spiritual stuff." And I am serious about it for multiple reasons, but probably one of the main reasons is it's just the truth. It's the right thing to do. I've witnessed too many patients hit the ceiling and and go back to symptom and diseases that they thought they overcame with diet and exercise. So there's more to it. We're not just physical. There's the supernatural. There's the quantum. There's the outside the physical realm, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But because we have so many new listeners, every now and then I like to pause, use an episode to kind of recap and go through some of this stuff. And there will be some new stuff today, like this article I was reading just this week. I'm going to quote from it. And the name of the article is, "Can Consciousness Exist Without a Brain?" And then they go on to talk about many, many, many cases of patients who did not have a brain, or at least very, very minimal, like 1 to 2 millimeters thick layer of brain tissue. So many documented cases in the medical literature of this. Most of these cases are hydrocephalus, which is fluid inside the cranium, inside your skull, and there's so much fluid it prevents the brain tissue from developing. In the Lancet, this was years ago, a French man was diagnosed with postnatal hydrocephalus, which I just mentioned, excess cerebrospinal fluid around the brain, at the age of 6 months old. And despite this condition, he grew up healthy, became a married father of 2 children, and worked as a civil servant. When he was 44 years old, he went to the doctor due to a mild weakness in his left leg. The doctor scanned his head thoroughly and discovered that his brain tissue was almost entirely gone. Most of the space in his skull was filled with fluid, with only a tiny sheet of brain tissue. The brain was virtually absent, wrote the lead author of the case study, Dr. Lionel Fouillette of the Department of Neurology, and Marcel France. The article just goes on to talk about how the actual physical matter of the brain isn't needed. Lots of published cases similar to this one. So they go on to hypothesize and theorize and talk about things beyond the neurons and where consciousness even comes from. In this, they quote an author, Hammerhoff, who says that these neurons in the brain are mostly composed of microtubules, tiny, tiny little tubes that make up the neurons. And I want to find this part real quick. Here it is. Because when you look inside the neurons, you see all these microtubules, and they're in a periodic lattice, which is perfect for information processing and vibrations, Hammerhoff said. Due to their properties, microtubules function like antennas. Hammerhoff says they serve as quantum devices to transduce consciousness from a quantum dimension. It goes on to say, British physicist, mathematician, and Nobel laureate Sir Roger Penrose and Hammerhoff hypothesized a theory that quantum processes generate consciousness. Quantum refers to tiny units of energy or matter at a microscopic level. Its unique features can help us understand many things that current science cannot explain. Microtubules act as a bridge between the quantum world and our consciousness. They take quantum signals, amplify them, organize them, and somehow, through processes we don't fully understand, turn them into feelings, perceptions, and thoughts that make up our conscious awareness. It goes on to say that these microtubules adapt and rearrange themselves over time. And Hammerhoff describes the brain uh, as serving like an information processor, receiving signals from the universe is what how he describes it, and forming them into consciousness. The brain processes information across multiple scales, each vibrating at different frequencies. Brain waves oscillating at half to 100 hertz. Individual neurons fire faster than that at averaging 500 to 1,000 hertz. And inside the nerve cells called neurons, the microtubules vibrate even faster than that in the megahertz range. Um, so, my point to this is nobody knows where consciousness comes from. Nobody really understands it fully. It's definitely not just the brain. It doesn't originate from the cells, the brain tissue itself, the physical matter. The article goes on to talk about how rather than a computer of simple neurons, the brain is a quantum orchestra because you have resonances and harmony and solutions over different frequencies, much like you do in music. And so I think consciousness is more like music than it is a computation. And that was a quote again from Hammerhoff. And they go on to just talk about how science is always evolving, and they'll continue to hypothesize, theorize on this neuroscience and philosophy intersection. But guys, my point is, we know clearly, and I talk about in other episodes and other videos, that thoughts impact our DNA, changes the physical shape of our DNA in which genes are expressed or not expressed. Think of a compression or force on a spring, tightening up that spring versus relaxing the spring. That double helix DNA does the same thing. It gets compressed by certain thoughts. We know that the structure of the water inside the cells changes structure based on thoughts. Professor Emoto in Japan, the hidden images of water. So, and everything floats in water. Our nucleus, our DNA, our mitochondria, our ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, the cell itself. There's extracellular water, intracellular water. We're one big bag of water. Thoughts impact the shape of that water, H3O2. Not going to get into all that today, but this is just a known fact. We know that water holds memory. That is homeopathy. Go listen to, I've interviewed a couple of homeopaths or watched the 4-pillar video on hydration. We get into that in the water video. It's available on our website, veritaswellnessmember.com. But memory is stored in water. We know that every molecule, physical molecule of the body, so regardless of what your disease or symptom is, say it's a pancreatitis, chronic pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas. So if you took a microscope and went and looked at the pancreas, you would see pancreatic cells if you got a high-powered enough microscope. So what's that cell made of? Well, the cell membrane's made of fats, lipids, and then you've got the intracellular water, and then you've got different protein structures inside the cell. But if you kept going down with the microscope even further, you'd eventually end up at the atomic level, atoms of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, etc. These atoms that make up the structures that make up the cells that make up you, the atoms themselves are only 1% physical matter and 99% not physical, or you could say empty space. The protons and neutrons in the nucleus and the electrons out there orbiting the nucleus, but the distance between the two, that's empty. It's like a golf ball on the 50-yard line and the mosquitoes on the top of the light post in a football field. I've talked about that many times. So this empty space actually is not empty. It's empty of Newtonian physics, of particles, of matter that we can touch, taste, see, and feel with our 5 senses and look at. But it's these energetic frequencies, these invisible forces, vibrational frequency, like my voice going through this microphone, through the airwaves to your ears. How does that happen? You know, there's radio waves in this room right now. If I had an antenna or a radio dial, I could tune in and find that station and then hear someone's voice. Well, those waves are here right now. So there's these invisible waves traveling around. But lots of different frequencies, but that's what these atoms are. 99% of it is just this energetic frequency. And that's where we start to move into this other realm, this quantum realm or spiritual or supernatural realm. So I meant to say at the top of the show, the name or the title of the show today is Why Do I Talk About Spiritual? Why does spiritual matter? Why do I bring that up? And I know with the last 2 episodes with Nicole, we've kind of dove deep into some deep spiritual matters. And that, if you're new to spiritual talk, that could have been foreign or not sure what we're talking about or how does that apply to you. Might have been over your head. Maybe you tuned it out. We'll have Nicole on more and we'll talk on other matters in the spiritual realm. So today's talk is for you to try to pique your curiosity, to start seeking and looking and exploring and asking these questions. Because bottom line, the reason why we talk about spiritual things is for everything I just listed. These thoughts impact our DNA, our genes, our mitochondria. Your heart beliefs are programming your mitochondria. Is that mitochondria going to burn sugar or fat at a high RPM or at a low RPM? You're going to be in fight or flight. You're going to be rest and digest. Despite your circumstances, we're programmed and meant to be rest and digest. We are programmed for peace, joy, love, despite our circumstances. Our heart beliefs impact that mitochondria. So this is why we talk spiritual, because of the physical implications and because I've seen way too many patients over the years just use diet, exercise, supplements, and hydration to get better temporarily, but long-term they start to regress and sometimes even to the point of physical death, including Roby Mitchell, my mentor, who was known as Dr. Fit, and I would submit that nobody could eat cleaner and better than Dr. Fit. I never saw him eat anything that wasn't a superfood and hydrate perfectly and exercise amazing. Even though he was in his late 50s when I met him, early 60s. I mean, you couldn't get more fit than Dr. Fit. And I won't go into that whole story. I've talked about other times. You can read about it in my blog that came out this week too, on the newsletter. If you're don't get the newsletter, you can get it on our website, sign up for that, or my articles get archived as blogs on the website. So just go to resources blog and then read the article I put out this week called Made Whole, the difference between symptom management, stewardship, and made whole. But anyways, Roby was great at stewardship. Doctors are trained symptom management. Ask your doctor. He'll tell you, yes, I was trained to manage asthma, manage diabetes, manage all this stuff, not reverse it. Nutrition coaches, holistic practitioners really focus on stewardship, eat good food. And there's different, versions of that. I just say God food, not man food. Exercise well, get sunshine, get back in touch with the ground, get your feet and hands in the dirt. We're separated from the earth, and the earth has all these electrons to donate, and we need electrons. It powers us up, basically. But all this hydration, get some minerals in your water, quit drinking dead water. We need energized water, structured water. All that, though, is stewardship. So the reason we're talking spiritual is because just stewarding, although necessary, I believe, and you can see even total reversal of disease. I've seen it many times, but you'll hit the ceiling. So I went to medical school to help people, and I walked across that stage, got my diploma, and thought I learned everything there was to know to help y'all. And after 10 years of conventional medicine, my eyes were open to the fact, no, there's other stuff that medical school in the United States doesn't teach doctors that actually can help people. So I went and learned not all that, but I learned a bunch of that. And I saw amazing results, helped a lot of people that way. But that was mostly related to some integrative protocols to treat symptoms, a lot of stewardship, just, quit eating sugar and processed grain at first. Now we like fresh milled grain, of course. Sue Becker, thank you very much. But the ceiling. Roby Mitchell hit the ceiling. He passed away early, younger than he should have, I believe. And lots of other people do too. Lots of people get overcome with disease again after they dieted and exercised their way out of it. And so we want to keep going because I want folks to be well and not need a doctor. And after 10 years of conventional and 10 years of integrative, I'm firmly convinced just treating symptoms and just stewardship, you're going to leave yourself vulnerable and at risk for continued issues. So that's why we talk spiritual. Some other things, if you have not heard me talk in the past about the PAIR lab, the Princeton Engineering and Anomaly Research Lab, there's basically a computer that randomly generates numbers, and people in this test group were asked to think of certain numbers, and it actually influenced that computer. People's thoughts influenced a random event generator. The observer effect, that's very well known in quantum physics. Electrons coming out of an electron gun change direction and get impacted when the researcher observes them versus not observing them. Incredible. You can look up observer effect. But basically, at the end of the day, quantum physics shows us that we are co-creating, is how I would say. Our thoughts actually impact these physical molecules in such a way that we are creating stuff, good or bad, based off our thinking. And speaking of quantum physics, I found this quote I wanted to share. This is world-renowned quantum physicist Michio Kaku, Kaku. He's a co-founder of the revolutionary string theory, and he announced to the world a few years ago that he now believes in the existence of God because the universe shows evidence that it was designed by an intelligent creator. Quote, "To me, it's clear that we exist in a plan which is governed by rules that were created, shaped by a universal intelligence and not by chance." And I would say if you really got to the upper echelons, the top in the scientific world, you would find pretty much everybody's in agreement with that. There is just no random chance that all this was just poof here. I mean, some will go with, well, aliens, an intelligent alien, seeded this planet and got all this started. We'll maybe get into that later. But so that answers the question why spiritual talk, because we're not just natural physical elements only. There's this other realm. That other realm impacts the physical. That's why. So you don't have to believe that. You don't have to agree with all this evidence, and all these quantum physicists and scientists agree with me. But I just wanted to state that that's why. Now, I know it's a lot easier, especially in the Western world, especially in West Texas, to just, not get into all this. Just, we got to wake up, get our job done, get our kids to school, work the 9 to 5, make the money, take the kids to baseball games, do the thing, live life, provide for your family, have a little bit of fun along the way, wake up and do it all over again. It's easy just to get in this routine of in the natural realm only and kind of not think about these deeper things. But if you're sick, especially if you're desperately sick, then hopefully your heart is open to seeking more. Okay, so that leaves us with, if there's a supernatural, spiritual, quantum realm, what about it? And what can we know about it? Can we know anything about it? And maybe the next question, why do you, Dr. Ben, always go back to Jesus, this Jesus guy? So if you're not a Jesus man or woman, not a follower, a disciple of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, that's okay. I would invite you to explore that. So I'm going to tell you that, in my opinion, there's two big categories of reasons why you might want to consider Jesus. One's a left brain category. One's the right brain side of things. I'm pretty left brain, intellectual, rational, and black and white kind of guy. I need evidence. Even if you're not naturally bent that way, hardcore like I am, our culture, our Western culture, just kind of forces everybody that way anyways, or tries to. And let me just say this too at the outset. If religion has turned you off, or you don't like religion, or just the word Jesus or God or Bible or spiritual, if that's a turn off, I'll encourage you to keep listening. And I don't want to be offensive to anybody. whether you believe in no supernatural, or you just believe in a source or a universal intelligence or something out there we can't really figure it out, or you believe in some religious version of God. And I have friends in all walks, all different religions: Baptist, Church of Christ, Methodist, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, Church of the Nazarene, Pentecostal, Mennonite, Amish, Catholic, Greek Orthodox, Latter-day Saint, Mormon, Muslim, Jewish. I'm probably missing some, but I have friends, current and past, in all of those. And I don't want to offend any of those groups. I'm not here to offend anybody, but I am here to try to speak some truth and connect some dots, because in my experience, it's one of these, or even some I didn't name, religions that accidentally have tended to hurt somebody or get something not exactly accurate when it comes to representing the Creator, the one who created this whole thing and designed it, created the physical and the supernatural, created the interaction, the way that microtubule vibrates at a quantum frequency and brings in, like an orchestra, something from the supernatural realm. There's a designer and a creator of that. I'll call him God. And so I think he hasn't been accurately represented, and I'm not saying I have it down pat either, but it's that inaccuracy of representation that I believe has turned a lot of people off on spiritual things and on God. And I'll just roll it into one word called religion. There's some way that we try to relate to God through man gets his hands in there too much, and his thoughts and his ways too much. And it kind of messes things up. So let's go big picture. If there's a design to all this, if there's this supernatural force out there, then the question to me is that supernatural force a personal force or an impersonal force? And that gets in the whole concept of consciousness and morality. These people you just know certain things are right and wrong. Killing a baby is just not right. We just have this innate sense of, let's look out for our fellow man. Let's lend a helping hand, help someone in need. That's just in us. Anyways, I'm not going to talk deeply on the difference or the debate between a personal versus an impersonal. I'm just going to say, I think the evidence is overwhelming that it's a personal force that's out there. Okay, so let's just say, or even if you don't believe, let's just, for the sake of argument, it's a personal supernatural force. Would he try to communicate to you? If he designed this thing, put you into it, put all of us into it, there's a purpose in it. Is there a purpose? Would he want you to know the purpose? Would he want to communicate to that purpose to you? So these are big, big questions. And I'm going to say big picture. The very, very basic is the conclusion I've reached. Yes, there's a supernatural force. He is personal. He does want to communicate to you. And he has. He's done it both left brain and right brain, or he's trying to. And the very most basic, big picture, I think, conclusion is this supernatural force that created everything in you and me. He is love, and he wants to love something, meaning us. He created this being, these creatures, to love, and he wants that creature to love him back. So it's relationship. That's the bottom line. This supernatural force created this whole thing, put creatures into this creation that he could relate to, have relationship with. And he wants those creatures to love him and love the other creatures more than themselves, not be self-centered. Lay down your life for another type of love. He wants that kind of love. He is that kind of love. He wants us to be that kind of love to each other and to him. So it's all about relationship and love. And he wants us to all walk in peace and joy. So let's just stop right there. If that's true, who wouldn't want a piece of that? I don't care what religious background you come from or don't come from, or that offended you, or that you ran away from. someone misrepresented God. If this supernatural force is love, and he created you to love and to love, and he wants you to walk in peace and joy every day, sign me up. Who wouldn't want to sign up with that? That's the big picture. So the question is there a way to really believe that? Is there a way to know? Would he try to reveal that to us? Would he try to communicate that to us in some way? If all I'm saying is really true, would he try to do that? And I'm saying, yes, he would. He wants to communicate with you. He wants to walk with you, guide you, show you the way, and give you the direction in your life so that you can have true peace and joy and love and acceptance. You don't have to go try to find acceptance in your work or what you do or what others think about you, how much money you have, how many accolades you get, how much you can get accomplished, all, blah, blah, blah. So I talked about left brain and right brain ways to communicate. So the whole Jamie Winship model, if you don't know Jamie, I've interviewed him twice. I really recommend his 4-part series, Antioch Youth Group. You can just go look up on YouTube, Jamie Winship, Antioch Youth Group, part 1 through 4. And Jamie, for many years, was in the Middle East. And so the right brain way of doing this thing is real simple. You just close your eyes and get quiet and try to turn your left brain off and ask the creator God of the whole universe, just start talking to him. Ask him to reveal himself. And go listen to Jamie's videos and you'll hear all these examples. Now, this is in the Muslim world. In Middle East and Eastern type of culture, they're much more in tune, from what Jamie says. I haven't been there very much, a little bit, with their right brain, with that intuition, spiritual heart. They can tune in that way easier, it seems, than Westerners can. But anyways, go listen to Jamie, and that's the right brain way, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. I'm going to camp out for a second on the left brain way that I believe God trying to communicate with us. And that's called a book, an ancient text. Yes, it's called the Bible, but hang on real quick about this Bible thing. I've got a graph I need to pull up because I need a quote from it. And guys, all this is in my series called Why I Believe. It's on our YouTube page, Veritas Wellness. Also, if you're a member, it's on the Education Courses tab on your membership page on our website. Okay, so there's lots of ancient texts out there. Plato is one. Not too many people question the authenticity of that book. Well, did you know the approximate time span between the original Plato text that was written and the only copy that we have today is about 1,200 years? And there's only 7 copies of that original text. 1,200 years between when Plato was around writing this and when we actually have a copy of this book. Caesar, 1,000 years, approximately, the time span between when it was written, but the only copy that we have. 1,000 years is the space, and there's 10 copies. Aristotle, the time period from when he lived and wrote till the copy that we have is 1,400 years, 49 copies. Homer's Iliad, 500 years between when it was written and the only copy we have today. And there's 643 copies. This thing called the New Testament, there's over 5,600 copies in less than 100 years. So just from that standpoint, and of course that's not everything, but that's just a comparison of these other ancient texts that we tend to not question at all. There's so many extra biblical sources. Well, first let me just say the Bible itself, it's actually 66 different books, 40 different authors of these different books, most of whom didn't know each other at all, written on in 3 different languages, over 3 different continents, 1,500 years is the span of all these books. But you put them all together and they tell this one amazing continuous story. It's really incredible. But there's extra biblical sources. There's ancient writers that confirm the Bible. There's a guy named Papias. He's a Christian writer in 125 AD. So we're talking basically 90 years after Jesus walked the earth. And he affirms that Mark carefully and accurately recorded Peter's eyewitness observations. Quote, Mark made no mistake. He did not include, quote, any false statement. And Papias went on to say that Matthew had preserved the teachings of Jesus. He refers to John the Apostle. There's another ancient writer, Irenaeus. He was a Greek bishop, 130 AD. He quoted in his writings from every single New Testament book except 3rd John. And there's lots of others. I'm not going to go through them all, but even Old Testament confirmations. There's the Pilate inscription discovered in 1961. Again, these are all extra biblical sources and texts. There's a Cyrus cylinder discovered in 1879. And these are just different stones and texts that have ancient writings from thousands of years ago that confirm mostly a lot of the Old Testament stories. There's the Hittite tablets, there's the Moabite stone, there's a Taylor prism, the David inscription. Really interesting, the Book of Odes. It's a Chinese book of poetry, thought to be the writings of Confucius, 1000 BC to even back to 600 BC. Speaks of worldwide flood and Noah, and the spelling is N-U-W-A, but translated as Noah. That's in the Chinese Book of Ode thousands of years ago. And then there's a Book of Documents, another Chinese writing based off material from the first dynasty, the Shanghai dynasty, 1700 BC. That's 200 years before Moses and the writing of Genesis. And in one of these Book of Documents, it mentions again the flood, worldwide flood, and Noah, N-U-W-A. Just so many extra biblical texts that make it hard to believe the Bible's not reliable. And then when you just look at some of these things that are actually written in some of those 66 books that talk about and predict future things. There's a professor Peter Stoner, and he wrote a book about this. And what he did, he was a math professor at a university in California. And he counted 456 different predictions in the Old Testament part of the Bible that specifically talked about a certain single person would come along in the future to fulfill these. He did mathematical predictions using his mathematician background as a professor of math and statistician. And he estimated the odds of fulfilling just 8 of these 456 different predictions, 1 times 10 to the 28th power. The odds of fulfilling 48, 1 times 10 to the 157th power, basically impossible. So if you just come at this and approach this ancient text purely from a neutral, unbiased, just evidence-based, mathematical, look at all these cross-reference extra biblical sources, look at the time frame, look at the number of copies, look at these predictions that came true in one man named Jesus. So I would encourage you spend some time, go and look at these things, look at those Chinese oracles. The Chinese writings in particular to me were fascinating because they were so similar to some of the Hebrew, the actual characters. So there's a book called Oracle Bones Speak, and these are old oxen bones, estimated to be about 4,000 years old, and old turtle shells, and they have ancient original Chinese script that have very some of the characters similar to Hebrew writing, which Hebrew writing is one of the most ancient writings we know of. But the similarities that they found in these old Chinese writings on the oracle bones, on the turtle and oxen bones, but it's called Oracle Bones Speak. Here's a few of the similarities. God commanded things into existence. It talks about a 3-person God, a Trinity. It talks about the first man being created from dirt and being fully matured at time of creation. It talks about a 6 days of creation and a seventh day of rest. It talks about a Garden of Eden with a river in the middle of it. It talks about an evil serpent in the garden. It talks about a woman coveted after the forbidden tree. It talks about the man and woman making clothes for themselves, and the seed of the woman was good. And then it also talks about two brothers, Cain and Abel, one killing the other. So many consistencies. Again, 4,000-year-old oxen bones with Chinese literature on them. Just fascinating stuff. And I don't want to spend too much time on all the archaeology and all the extra biblical sources. But my point is, regardless of where you're at, I would encourage you to go study this thing, because where I'm going to try to go with this is to get your DNA, your mitochondria, your cells to function right, and those atoms that are 99% empty space to function right, and to be disease-free, symptom-free, beyond diet and exercise, sunlight and hydration. Your thinking needs to be aligned with the truth. And I believe the truth resides in our Creator, and the Creator's trying to communicate to you. And there's this supernatural book that's amazing. But for you to trust this Creator as being good and loving and for you, not against you, and to go to that book as a source of learning and knowledge and wisdom and understanding, you have to trust it. So if you don't trust the very foundational points of God created in the biblical version of creation, then you're going to always have a doubt in your mind about the whole rest of the book. So spend some time. You can go to creation.com and just type in anything. Carbon dating. I mean, Mount St. Helens erupted sometime around 80. I forget exactly, but they went and got rocks from the Mount St. Helens volcano. They know when those rocks were formed. They did dating on them, and they said they're 350,000 years old. So creation.com, you can look up radiocarbon dating and see all the fallacies of that, and the ways that there's certain assumptions that are made in carbon dating that make it unreliable. All the sediment layers from a great flood. They talk about 240 different cultures around the world. They talk about this worldwide flood. These transecting trees that go through all the layers, all the sediment layers, completely inconsistent with the millions of years in the Darwin thought process, marine fossils on tops of mountains, etc. Another reason to believe that the Bible's God's word and account of history is there's no other logical, reasonable explanation. People used to be able to go to Darwin for that, and Darwin is absolutely dead. And if you didn't know that, well, now you do. Again, go watch my series on why I believe, and I get into that. Just a couple quotes real quick. Darwin himself said, if numerous species belonging to the same genre or families have really started into life all at once, the fact would be fatal to my theory to descent with slow modification through natural selection. That was Darwin himself saying, my theory's going to be dead if you don't see multiple slow, slight forms changing to higher forms. That's the whole missing link. I'm going to go through a couple of these missing links in a moment because they were all fraud. But Darwin said if the Cambrian explosion, what that term is there's a sediment layer where all of a sudden there's all these different species in the fossil record. And Darwin said, well, if you find that, then that blows my theory up, because you shouldn't find that. You should just in each sediment layer, each successive layer, more and more and more higher level of species because of slow modifications over time. So that's not what is found. Another quote from Darwin, if it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. What we call this today is irreducible complexity. What Darwin is saying, if you find an organ system or parts of the body, remember Darwin didn't even know what a cell was. But he said, if you find systems where there's multiple parts to it, It couldn't have slowly, just piece by piece, been added to one part to the next part to the next part. No, you need all the parts at once for function to happen. The blood clotting system in the body, the human eyeball, the mitochondria, the flagellum. Think of a mouse trap. There's like 5 different parts of a mouse trap: the platform, the spring, the thing that holds us, the bar back, the all the pieces. You have to have all of it together for it to function and do the job. That's what Darwin was talking about. So there's multiple examples of irreducible complexity now in the body. But again, my series goes through that, and creation.com goes through a lot of that too, if you want to have an open mind and really explore that. I do, real quick. Oh yeah, here we go. Sorry, I'm scrolling through some slides to bring you these, because this blew me away when I found this. Here's a quote from Darwin. No, this was from another book. I'm sorry. This was someone looking at Darwin, but the quote is, "Why, if species have descended from other species by insensibly fine gradations, do we not everywhere see innumerable transitional forms?" Translation: this is the whole missing link. We don't see any of them. They've tried to put a lot out there. If you just read the headlines, you might be tricked into thinking that Lucy was a missing link. Well, Lucy, found in 1974, supposed to be 3 million years old, supposed to be a missing link, and was supposed to be the link between monkeys and upright walking humans, because a hip and knee bone looked like they were upright walking. The fact was, there was no knee found with this skeleton. They used knees that were found 1 mile away and 200 feet deeper. And this original skeleton just looks like a walking monkey that we have today, even. But they tried to force that deception on us. Then there was the Ramapithecus. This is found in India in 1930s. It's supposed to be a missing link between monkeys and humans. It was a fragment of a jaw and then some teeth. That's it. And they tried to make this into a missing link monkey to human. Similar teeth were found later in the 1970s in Ethiopia, found to be teeth of a baboon. Then there was Java Man, found by Eugene DeBose. It's a gibbon monkey skull and a human leg bone that was found 50 feet away. There were also 2 human skulls found with that leg bone. They hid that fact until Eugene finally confessed to the hoax on his deathbed. Then there's the Piltdown Man. That was another supposed missing link. It was a human skull combined with the jaw of an orangutan, and the teeth were filed down to make it look more human, and the fragments were chemically stained to make it look older. This was revealed as a fraud 40 years after they tried to tell everybody it was a missing link. There's Orc Man, found in 1982 in southern Spain, supposed to be, quote, the oldest human fossil ever found in Europe, supposed to be 1.6 million years old. Turns out it was actually just a skull fragment. That's it. And it was from a 4-month-old donkey. Then there's Nebraska Man, based off one tooth. They found one tooth in 1921 and extrapolated that to be like this Neanderthal Nebraska Man, they called it. But it turned out to be a tooth from an extinct pig. They discovered the exact same type of tooth protruding from the jaw of a wild pig and some other fossils. Then there's Neanderthal Man. Multiple fossils were put together. He appeared to be stooped over, so they thought this was a missing link to the upright walking human. Later discovered he just had rickets. That's why he was stooped. I'm not going to go on and on and on. The point I'm trying to make, guys, is we've been told lots of things, but the lots of things were fraudulent and half-truths or just flat out lies. So if you've submitted yourself to the scientism, the religion of science being the answer to everything, and intellectualism, the left brain thing, go explore and seek, and you will find there is no legitimate other answer. So just process of elimination if you want to do that. But there is so much evidence, left brain evidence, for the authenticity of the Bible. Lee Strobel, Case for Faith and Case for Christ. Go read his books. Look him up on YouTube. J. Warner Wallace, Cold Case Christianity. I've had him on the show a couple times. Go read his book. Look him up on YouTube. Both these guys were non-believers, atheists. One was a detective, cold case detective. One was an investigative journalist. They used their own skill set from their professions to investigate, to try to prove their wives wrong. Their wives basically were believers and taking the kids to church, and the husbands weren't sure about that. The conclusion, as you'll see in their book, is all the proof and evidence, purely left brain, logical, rational evidence pointed to the Bible's true. Jesus was true. Jesus was real. He walked the earth, and all his disciples that followed him believed everything he said. And he had the biggest impact on as any man in the known world has ever had on the earth. Okay, guys. I'm kind of running out of time, so I want to wrap this up. The main point, I believe, is if you're not sure about spiritual, that's fine. We'd love to still visit with you in our wellness program, our wellness navigators, chat with you. If you're from any of those religions I mentioned earlier, Muslim, Jewish, all the different Christian sects or denominations, or your belief is in science and Darwin is your high priest, or you just believe in a source or universe, or you hadn't thought about this. It doesn't matter to me at all. We want to still help you, because if you're listening to the show, probably you've been sick or a loved one's been sick and you haven't got answers anywhere. We don't have all the answers. But I firmly believe God, who created everything and created you with a purpose, wants to communicate to you. He wants you to know that he's love and he loves you, and he's done a lot to prove that, and he's made a way to restore you and reconcile you back to his original intent. And God's original intent was to just be with you, to be in relationship with you. It is clear in the Bible. So if you have never read the Bible, I'll give you the Cliff Note version. God wanted to create a creature to love and to love him back and to love others more than themselves, not be self-centered, and he did it. But to do that, he had to give this creature free choice, free will choice. So he did that, because without free choice, there's no love. So the whole love thing can't happen. So he decided to create this creature, but then be there with him. He is the source. He is the Father. He is where all this originated from. And he wants to be with the creatures in relationship, communicating. And that's his original design, his original plan, and his original intent. And that's what's clear in the Bible. He wanted it to be that way. He still wants it to be that way. But knowing this creature would have free will choice and could go off in his own path, his own way, and that way would lead to destruction, destroying each other. These creatures would kill them, the other creatures, and kill themselves even. But it would just be chaos and destruction, and self-centeredness would be at the center of all that. Self-preservation, self-protection, self-promotion. Everybody would turn inward. How can I get ahead? How can I save myself? How can I hoard enough stuff to be protected for tomorrow and be provided for tomorrow? It's this whole self-centered thing. We would basically be our own gods. We don't need God. We don't need the creator. We don't need advice. We don't need anyone telling me what to do. I'll figure it all out myself. Well, that self-centeredness is a destruction of everything. And that division is at the root of every religion, every denomination, all the ones I mentioned earlier in the show, I believe. So God's not into all that. He's not into division. He's into one. May they be one as we are one, is what he said to Jesus said to him. So he's trying to reconcile us all back to that original plan, original intent, relationship with him individually. And so that's up to you as an individual to seek that out. But at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. The one who created you and loves you wants you to know that, wants to communicate to you, and wants really to communicate to your heart. That's the whole right brain, spiritual intuition, that know that you know that you know, just that feeling deep inside. But you can have a feeling deep inside influenced by the evil one, the liar, the adversary of God, the one who wants to turn you self-centered and make you toil, put a burden on you. You got to work. You got to earn it. You got to, you. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. You're rejected. You're whatever. So that's through your soul. versus your spirit. I talked about that in the previous episode, I believe it was with Nicole. Go back and listen. I don't have time to get into soul versus spirit, but we are a three-part being. We're the physical molecules, and then we are the soul and the spirit. We actually are the spirit housed in the flesh with a soul, is how I would say it. But we can, this supernatural realm, we can be influenced through our soul or through our spirit. And so we really need to understand that difference and dive into that, because the truth and love comes through our spirit, our born again spirit. The spirit of truth from God will lead you into all truth. God wants to lead you. He knows you have free will and can be deceived, tricked, and taken down another path. So he sent one into the earth as a man to show us how to do it, show us how to love our neighbor more than ourselves, show us how to not be self-centered, show us how to commune with our creator, talk to, listen to, trust, obey, and walk out exactly how God would talk and walk and live and treat it if he could be down here in the physical realm. He can't because he's God and he's in the supernatural realm, but through his spirit, the Holy Spirit, that's the Trinity, God, Son, and Spirit, there is a way to do this thing. So he sent the Son into the physical realm, being led by Holy Spirit truth. That's what directed Jesus every day of how to talk, how to react. The religious people tried to trap him in so many ways, and Jesus had so much wisdom and so much love. And he came, he said, to open the eyes of the blind, to set the captives free, to heal the brokenhearted. Guys, he came for a purpose. He came to destroy the works of the devil. He has overcome the adversary. We can walk in truth, light, love, and joy. Guaranteed it can be done. It can be done through your born again spirit. And this is getting into language you don't understand, that's okay. We can walk with you through it if you want to. And if you want to stay in symptom management, go to your doctor, or if we have room in our medical clinic, but the room's pretty much full there. If you want stewardship, veritaswellnessmember.com, go for it. You can sign up, do all the stewardship stuff. We need to eat God food, not man food. We need to move and not sit. We need real light, not artificial light. We need good oxygen, meaning good breathing. When you take a deep belly breath, you're actually massaging your internal organs and you're pressing the spine with the intra-abdominal pressure just from a breath, from your diaphragm, sucking that air in. You're going to support your spine. How many people have low back pain? Because of upper chest, shallow breathing, because fight or flight mode. You need nasal breathing, deep belly breathing, and that massages those internal organs and supports your lower back. So guys, we're all about the physical too. We need to know these things. We need to know how God designed this physical vehicle that our spirit is housed in. So we don't want to ignore that at all. And we don't. So get on the website, watch all the stuff, sign up with the navigator, get on Emily Edwards. We may interview her for next week on the movement pillar. Grip strength is a better predictor of longevity than than your cholesterol levels and blood pressure. And everyone's checking blood pressure and cholesterol all the time. Do you ever check your grip strength? You need to be flexible and mobile and strong, be able to get off the toilet, the bed, the floor when you're down, when you're 80, 90 years old, to stay out of the nursing home. We need to steward the physical for sure. Never want to ignore that. But we don't want to stay there. We don't want to make that our God and our Savior, and our idol and our total focus. When we elevate diet and exercise up here as our sole focus, this is what's going to cure me. Or definitely if we elevate a doctor up there, some supplement or pharmaceutical is going to cure me. It ain't going to happen, guys. That is the reason we get the worst outcomes of any country in the industrialized world, because our healthcare system got hijacked 110 years ago into pharmaceutical only, when all the healing arts prior to that for thousands of years were lining up with the body's native intelligence and the design to heal itself. Pharmaceutical allopathic medicine came to suppress those symptoms, not work with them, not work with the body's ability to fix itself. So that system just totally broken, absolute chaos, going bankrupt in it and dying younger than anybody else. These kids are sick, adults, middle age, everybody just so sick. So eject yourself from that system. Exit, put your blinker on, exit the highway, get that exit ramp off the standard American path and onto a more ancestral path. And that will help you so much, guys. Just eat God food, not man food. Do some nasal breathing, get some sunshine, get some movement. It's awesome. We love learning this stuff, love teaching it to you. But the supernatural, there's just no doubt about it. No way to ignore that. It is a huge piece, and I think the most important piece. So that's a little summary of why I talk about spiritual things so much. Hopefully that resonated with some of you folks that aren't sure why I talk about it so much, why we flipped it, why we spend all this time lately on Peace Pillar. You can go read my blogs. There's a 7-part series called Why Do I Talk About the Peace Pillar So Much? VeritasWellnessMember.com under resources, then blog. Go back and find those. Because I think since 2020, really, a lot of eyes got opened up, and it's continuing to happen. There's a new wave of eyes opening up, I think now close to 2024, or we're in 2024, nearing the midpoint, or actually we're in the last half. Eyes continue to open up. That's God. I believe he's drawing people. If you're seeking, you'll find it. Now there are those that are just seeking the old comfort of the old life. I kind of mentioned that last week, just looking for those old things that brought you comfort. Not that there's anything wrong with football games and, movies and all the things that we did, or our parents and grandparents did back in the good old days. But we shouldn't seek those for our peace, joy, and comfort, because you won't find them. You'll be forever searching. All right, guys. We'll be back next week with another show. I'm Dr. Ben Edwards. You're the Cure, VeritasWellnessMember.com. You can go find all these episodes. We've got the corporate wellness program. Talk to your bosses, your CEOs, and HR people. We're trying to get upstream, be the first choice, not the last resort. Be proactive instead of reactive. So we'd love to partner with your company. You can reach out to our website. We have a corporate wellness tab on there also, guys. So check that out and share this with everybody. Not so we increase our views, but so that we can increase our reach and help people get well and shut down the allopathic medical system, because we won't need it anymore, because you're the cure. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. I'm Dr. Ben Edwards. See you next week. Bye-bye.